Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Optimal Wealth Podcast, where we discuss creating passive income through real estate. Our mission is to help educate investors on how to grow wealth and invest passively. My name is Jarod Alexander, and I am a passive investor, currently in 6 syndications as a limited partner. I am also the founder of Optimal Equity Group, which is a real estate investment firm that was created primarily to help educate the passive investor. We do that in a couple of different ways. One is we provide education to help give you the confidence to get into the passive investing space. And two, each episode we will interview amazing guests that explore the strategies, insights, and secrets used by successful investors. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting out on your real estate journey, this podcast is designed to help give you the confidence and knowledge you need to make informed and profitable decisions. All right, welcome to another show of the Optimal Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Jarod Alexander, and I'm super excited to have our guest on the show, Jamie Gruber. And honestly, just one word I can sum him up is nothing short of inspiring. And leaving a $400,000 a year insurance career to pursue his entrepreneurial dreams, moving his family to the Dominican Republic, and becoming a partner and Quantum Capital, a multifamily firm that has 170 million under asset management. And along the way, he's joined GoBundance. He's founded Emerge and just helping elevate others, to achieve their goals. And I'm really excited to dive in deep here, Jamie, and really excited for the listeners to come in on this conversation. So welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Let's just jump in, right? And I actually got this from you, so we're gonna roll with your style here. So instead of giving the background, the history, we're gonna get into some of that. But you went from a $400,000 a year insurance executive to now living your dream life in the Dominican Republic with your family, right?
Yeah.
So if I asked the version of you from 10 years ago to picture this life, how would you react, and what surprise what surprises you most about this journey?
That's a great question. What a way to kick it off. Shocked is the answer. If I went to 10 years, so I'm 46, that would be 36. I was just starting to think about the possibility of maybe investing in real estate. Nothing about quitting a job, not seriously, at least at that point. So shocked from 36 to 46, man. So, and the second part of that question, just remind me, was
how do you think?
Would I feel?
Yeah. So what would surprise you about the most about being on this journey?
It's probably the speed. I mean, I'd be surprised that I moved to another country. I'd be surprised that I quit my job. I'd be surprised that I was investing in real estate. I'd be surprised that I bought my own and then later was raising capital from people. I'd be surprised that I had a personal brand. I'd be surprised by all of the elements, but for all of it to really happen within, say, a 5-year period, that would be the most shocking. Because honestly, at that point, what was I? If 10 years ago, I would have been like 15, 16 years into that career. I mean, we just talked about it. Everything goes slow. You go through school 13 years, college 4 years. I didn't finish, but if I had, that's what it would have been. Career 15, 20 years. Everything takes time, or it's supposed to. That's what we're told. So if you told me all of the little bullet points on my bio happened within like a 5-year period or less, that would be the most surprising thing, is the speed at which things can happen when you don't subscribe to the institutions, I guess.
Yeah. No, great answer. And I mean, it's crazy just to think, just in 10 years, I just read your bio, right? In just 10 years, all this has happened. But man, it was taking that big leap of that comfort zone. And we were just talking about this from leaving and quitting a $400,000 a year job. I mean, most people go through school, get a college degree to make less than half of that, and they'd be happy for the rest of their lives, right? Like anywhere 6 figures plus, that is considered, well, with inflation, not so much nowadays, but that is considered a living a good lifestyle. And so I want you to walk us through that decision from leaving that job. What security did you have in place, maybe financially, and I'm kind of
kind of give you three questions all in one here, but the fear of that, the security that you had in place, and then how has it been with your family making that transition?
The moments leading up to and the moment that probably created the change for me was just like a journey of personal development, I would say. And then I can get into, what I had, how I secured myself and everything, because I think it's part of this story. But late 30s, I get this job, almost 40, I guess. I get this job in Michigan, which was a transfer with my current company to make the 400 grand a year, to make the equity, all of that stuff. The big job, the corner office, everything, the destination, or so I thought. And then, it obviously ended up not being that. And that move and that transition created some sort of break in me. It was just like, I always say, all of a sudden, my authentic self rose up to the level of my ego. My ego drove everything. Get the big job, make more money, get the office, have the power, have the big organization. And my authenticity, whatever that is, whatever that, at the time I didn't know what it was, but this other part of me that craved something very different for myself, just sort of stayed quiet next to or wasn't loud enough to fight the ego. The ego was in charge. So when I finally got the job and I make the move and I could feel this like complete disconnect from myself, this like depression over getting everything I thought I wanted, that's when this sort of authentic voice rose up and said, all right, look, ego, you've been calling the shots. Now it's my turn. Because look, your shot's called, he's miserable. And look, the ego doesn't just say, yep, no, go ahead, right? There's an internal battle that happens. So this was like 2 years of what the hell? I got everything I wanted and now I can't sleep. I can't eat. My wife even said to me like, hey, you're here, but you're not here. Like just completely not present in those first couple of years, especially as I'm going through this internal battle. So for me, it was, all right, well, what do I want? I found these other ideas around real estate and everything else. And that brought me into the personal development world, joining a community like Abundance and just starting to get exposed to different ways of life. And without going through every step of it, I remember specifically 2 moments, and they were both in the car. One was on my 40th birthday. So this was on October 1st, 2018. I was driving back from Massachusetts to Michigan after going to an event in Canada. So I was in Canada. Went down to Massachusetts, met my family. They were flying back. I hung out for a few days. They flew back and I drove to Michigan, 15, 20 hours. And I had just gone through this sort of retreat and thinking about like, who I am and what do I want and everything. And this song came on by One Republic called Secrets. Have you ever heard the song?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So the song comes on and the lyrics are playing and I'm listening to this song consciously and unconsciously for probably like 7 or 8 hours. It just kept repeating. The song says something like, I need another story, something to get off my chest. My life is kind of boring. There's something that I must confess. And then it goes through this whole thing of I'm giving all my secrets away. And the song really is about, I'm done. I gotta change all this. Whatever I thought I was, I've got to like purge and start anew. That song, man, I've been breaking down in tears, 40th birthday, driving this whole distance or whatever. And it was sort of like the first break toward, all right, I need to do something different. Flash forward a couple of years in 2021, in COVID, I had built up a real estate portfolio. I had built up a couple of businesses, including Emerge. I just started Emerge. I was on another drive to Florida, my wife and kids flying down there during COVID. We were going to go spend a month while I had my job. You can go anywhere at that point. Mm-hmm. And on that drive, I got my mind thinking about, because there's nothing else you can do other than focus on the road, right? Like I just started thinking about everything. And it was like, all right, what do I have saved? And at the time I had $120,000 saved. I would say my run rate about $10,000 a month. So I'm like, all right, that's a year. Got a year saved. What am I making passively? And I really wasn't taking anything out of my investments at that point. I didn't need to. I just let it roll into the account and pay for anything that popped up, not worry about it. But I thought through it. And I'm like, man, I can take about $4,000. I can take about $4,000 a month out of these investments. Maybe not every month, but I think I can take $4,000. So I got a year to $10,000 and I got 40% of it I could take every month. 4,000 out of the 10,000 I could take every month to offset costs. And then in my mind, I went through like, what are the costs really to my life? And I could probably pare it down if I needed to less than 10K. But if I didn't want to change anything, 10K a month at the time. So between those two things, my mind got thinking like, wow, you know what? I think this is possible. I think this is doable. And then 2 hours before I arrived in my destination in Florida, I got a call from a buddy in New England where I used to work in Massachusetts. And he told me about another friend of ours who was 4 or 5 years older than me, had 2 boys like I do, healthy guy, active. He died. Just went into the hospital with chest pain, never came out. And that moment, man, it was like a whatever, my divine moment. It was like I saw him, I saw me, I saw my future self, I saw all of this like in this moment. And it was this question that I asked myself, and I was kind of asking you before we started recording, that I never asked myself before. The question was not, and I hated this question, was what would you tell your 22-year-old self? There's so much regret in that. Like, I could go back and tell him. This is what I would tell him. It's just a bad question. It's not a good way to answer it, and it's impossible to do. But then it was like flashing forward, like what would 90-year-old me tell me who's at the end of life if he could give me advice today, if he walked in today? And at the time, 42, 43, whatever I was, kids, mortgage, big income, wife stay at home, like all these responsibilities, all this complexity. And to hear like this version of me in the future that only I can really know say, hey man, yeah, you're in your 40s, prime earning years. That's statistically true. If you're in your 40s, you're in your prime earning years. You are healthy. Your kids are healthy. Your wife is healthy. You're vibrant. You've got energy. You've got everything you need. Like complexity is where I am. Like, I don't know when I'm going to die, but it's going to be way sooner than I probably want. That's complex. So go out and do. Don't come to me. Don't meet me when you really do. Don't become that 90-year-old and look back and say, what if I had? What if I had done this? What if I had done that? So that was the decision point. That was the savings. That was the calculus on income. And it's amazing once I quit how opportunities popped up and it worked. But the last part of your question was about family. Mm-hmm. And truthfully, my wife is very supportive. I'm very fortunate. I would never take that away from her. Like, not everybody's spouse is supportive. She was extremely supportive. Her thing was like, hey, look, she grew up here in the Dominican, but in an impoverished area, not where we live now. And, for her, like, whatever, we got to get a 2-bedroom apartment. We can both make 50 grand. You know what I mean? Like we're both employable. We'll be fine. Like, we're not going to live under a bridge. So that whole idea of like, I'm going to lose it all. Like, as I know you're thinking about this transition, like that's not real. That's not a realistic bottom. It just isn't. You're employable to a certain level. It may not be the same lifestyle, but you'll have a roof, you'll have food, you'll have, healthcare. You'll be fine. Mm-hmm. That was what my wife said. But to be honest with you, I think the other part of that is when somebody is struggling with their spouse sort of permitting or allowing or going along with the idea of you making a big change like that for fear of security or safety or whatever, it makes sense. I completely get it. But I don't know. I think there's something to be said for a leader, whether it's the man in the house or whatever, but a leader, when they've got that when it's in their eye, like no one can deny it. So again, I don't want to take credit away from my wife for being supportive. She didn't need to be. It's not like I tricked her or manipulated her or anything like that. But at the same time, we've all had moments in our life where we made a decision that may have been like tough to explain to somebody, or we were stressed about explaining it to somebody. A girl you're going to marry, a job you're going to take, a place you're going to go, a sudden spontaneous decision you're making that seems illogical, but there's something really certain in you. So when you tell that other person, they're like, yeah, makes sense. You're like, wow. I can't believe they just like bought it. But I think there's a certainty you bring to that moment. And I had that. Look, I'm ready. I can't do this anymore. I just can't. I built this and I have this job. I have to put one down. So option A is just take all of what I built and sweat and took time away from the family over the last 2-3 years while I'm side hustling and just toss it away and go back to something I hate, or get rid of the thing I hate. There's no way she could look in my eye and deny that from me. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm going to share this story came actually to my wife, because I think this is important too. And for anybody that is looking at this transition, I think it's important about the trust. You have your partner needs to trust you, and you just don't say, hey, trust me, I'm going to do that. You got to prove that to a certain extent. And I've kind of been going through that phase. My wife and I have been married 7 years together, 8 or 9. And when I first got together with her, now, mind you, she's a teacher, right? And living, they don't get paid much, living paycheck to paycheck. And here I come in, and say, I'm going to be a millionaire one day. And she's like, I'm going to be the Queen of England. And Jamie pissed me off when she said that. I swear, it's funny now. We joke about it, but that because she didn't believe in me right at the time. But she didn't know me, right? This is when we were dating and stuff. And now I have gained her trust. I've shown success in the ventures that I have done in the W-2 and some real estate and things like that. So anyways, just wanted to make that correlation.
No, what's great? I don't know, maybe she didn't believe in you, but I don't even know if that's it. Again, I don't know your relationship, but it feels to me like she didn't have any exposure to the possibilities. Yeah. And then here you come and you're saying something that just sounds crazy to her. It's not like, I don't believe in this guy, but like nobody becomes a millionaire. Not in my world.
Right.
Nobody does that, right? And then here you come making a 6-figure income, making a good salary and like providing for the family, doing all these things, buying real estate, raising capital, buying a business. And she's like, wow, my eyes have opened. It's like being in GoBundance. I mean, the first time I joined GoBundance, the most intimidating thing was like, holy crap, you can make that much money. And like, I knew it, but I didn't know you could make millions every quarter. I didn't know you can make 20 million and still just like look like a normal guy across the room that I would have no idea you make that much money, right? Like I didn't know you could make 20 million and wear Old Navy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it was like a complete like, whoa, my world expanded. And now, you know, it doesn't feel crazy to me. It doesn't feel insane to me. Like I see the pathway there. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever. Normal guy, he did his thing. So your wife didn't have the exposure and you gave her that exposure, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's funny because at the time, now that I think back, I was making, I don't know, $500 a week.
Right.
You know, bringing home 30 grand a year, right? Telling her I'm going to be a millionaire. And so, but yeah, no, it's definitely, you know, through that experience has led up. So let's transition into, so caveat for the guest here, this is a real estate focused podcast, but it's going to be a little different than today because, you know, Jamie is super knowledgeable in a lot of different areas. And then, you know, in the community, we talk about these different pillars in life, you know, health, wealth, career, giving, contribution, you know, relationships, family, things like that. I want to go over, Jamie, if you could touch on, we're going to come back to real estate, I promise. But
sure.
One thing I forgot to mention in the intro, there's Jamie's also a host of the Tribe of Millionaires podcast, right?
Yeah.
And you've interviewed some incredible guests on there. I mean, Jesse Itzler, Grant Cardone, you know, some big names.
Pretty cool, yeah.
And I've really enjoyed. I've listened to a bunch of them. What's one story or one lesson from a guest that really stuck with you and influenced your journey?
We talked about this last night, but it wasn't even something they said or whatever. Well, I guess maybe in some way, but I think of Grant Cardone when I think of that answer. There's some other folks that were amazing. You know, there's so many stories of failure and overcoming failure, and they're amazing. But Cardone to me was interesting because of the normally, you know, when I interview a guest live, it's like a neutral spot, you know, or it's on stage or something like that. But with Cardone, it was, and I do a lot of prep. With Cardone, I did all my prep. And then you walk into his studios, into his offices, into his studio, you're meeting his team, you sit down at his desk in his studio, and you record when he comes in the room. So you get to observe like the culture of his organization, the people, what they are, how are they, what are they like, and all of that stuff. And there were two things that really jumped out. One was, this guy doesn't do anything but be Grant Cardone. Like everything else is done, and whoever is on his team or he figured out or somebody figured out, like just point that guy in the direction of put him in the room, give him a topic, and just let him roll. Don't ask him to approve paychecks. Don't ask him to do anything other than be Grant Cardone. So when you walk into his office, the security guard has that energy. I remember walking through the bullpen, his sales bullpen, and all these guys are on phones with the you know, like the earpiece phone or whatever. And it's like this like. It looked like boiler room. There's just all these people lined up and they're running to the aisle as I walk through, they go like, what are you doing? Like covering up the thing, high-fiving me. I'm like, they don't know who I am, but it's just this like energy that's there. So one was that, like, he is authentically that guy. People could say he's a scammer. I don't know. I don't know legally, whatever, but definitely the energy you see from him, it permeates. That's one. The second thing I saw was, and I said this last night when we had our Emerge call, is the dude he never advanced past 9 years old in the greatest way possible. Meaning he dreams and talks and has goals and ambitions like a 9-year-old would. And like we were talking about last night, I think most of us have goals and dreams and we're told we can be anything we want when we're 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And then whether it's physical maturity, getting closer to junior high, high school, emotional maturity, most people in our lives warn us off of that path, or they come in and they say, hey, that whole like you could do anything you want, like let's put that aside and let's narrow this down to what probably fits for you of what you should do because of what I see your skills or abilities. Like you need to become quote unquote realistic. Yeah. And most of us do. That's why I wanted to be an NFL sportscaster and ended up a claims adjuster.
Yeah.
Grant Cardone, he never stopped that. He's just one of these unicorns. Like he's just like, nah, man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy this many properties and going to, distribute 50 million a month. Like he just keeps changing and growing and talking like it sounds insane. Like grow up, but he doesn't. And because of that, even if he doesn't distribute 50 million a month, even if he distributes 40 or 36, I mean, come on, those are still monstrous goals and accomplishments just because he's willing to say it and not feel like he's an idiot. And I'll just give you one other little thing that this has done for me. As I evolve in my entrepreneurial freelance post W-2 sort of life, the last 3+ years I've been doing that. Almost 4. Holy crap, time flies. So 4 years, let's call it. I go through what I call the airplane test. So when I'm on an airplane and somebody asks me what I do, originally it was easy. Oh, I'm an executive with Progressive, right? I'm an executive with an insurance company. And then you leave that and you're doing a few different things. Like I have a mastermind. I have, I'm a real estate investor. So I'm a real estate investor. Just the most practical thing, even though it's like something I do, but really what I am, I'm a podcaster. I'm a creator. Like those are the things that I would say are more part and parcel to like what I love. Real estate's amazing and it does amazing things, but it's not my overwhelming passion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I would say real estate investor to avoid the judgment and the awkwardness of the moment. Grant Cardone wouldn't. So every time I want to step into a new identity, and I think you have to claim that before you actually have it, I say it on the plane to the person and then wait in awkward silence while they look at me like I'm weird. What do? I'm a podcaster. You're a podcaster. Remember one guy like, oh, you're one of those guys who, like you're always pushing sales on me through your podcast. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. But if that's how you perceive podcasters, fine. But man, as much as I was like, I dismissed him inside, I'm like, oh, now I feel like this slimy, goofy 40-something-year-old trying to make it on YouTube or whatever. Right. And now I say, oh, I'm a content creator. That's where I feel like the highest and best is of me and where I want to have my identity. So I say that out loud and feel uncomfortable in order to claim it. Cardone, what's amazing about him, what I saw is that there's no awkward, if there is, man, he's gotten past it. There's no awkwardness in claiming what he wants or claiming what he is or claiming what he does. None. He believes in himself like a 9-year-old does. And I admire that. Whether or not what he does is on the up and up, I don't know, but I admire that trait in him or anybody else that's like that.
Yeah, the success of Grant Cardone speaks for itself, right? Like, yeah, again, say what you want about him, but man, the guy's making moves and doing really well.
His books, his trainings, his 10X conference alone are massive businesses, so whether his real estate has some, issue, I don't know, but yeah, he's learned how to build a brand. He's put himself out there. He's connected very, very highly, and he's made a whole lot of money and built a huge life. So you can't dispute that. And I saw that as what I saw of him was like the dude never stopped dreaming.
Yeah, no, I love that answer. And you kind of teed me up for my next question. And again, promise we'll get to real estate. I'll keep promising until the end, and then we'll
won't do it, man. I didn't talk about real estate. Sure.
No. Because I love this stuff. And Jamie, you're just so great at communicating it, and you have the experience as well. But yeah, of course. And so let's talk about that identity shift, because you did say, all right, here I am, claim adjuster, but podcaster. I know you've started some multifamily events, and started, but you're a business owner starting a merge. Like, what was that process going through that identity shift from being at a 21-year career to this creator?
Everything to me is who you surround yourself with. And that's true in all facets. You have kids? I can't remember.
I do. Yeah. 3 and 6.
3 and 6. You said that. Sorry. Yeah. When you had kids or when you got pregnant, your wife got pregnant, when you were becoming parents, I'll bet you it was hard to like relate to your single friends. Mm-hmm. Right? Like you were more relatable to other guys with young kids. When you're in your flooring sales job, there's probably other guys that you can relate to because of in that industry more than others. Like I don't know. Everything is, to me, identity is formed by who you surround yourself with. If I want to be in great shape, I should go hang out with people in great shape and go to the gym with those people and eat like those people. And my identity becomes somebody that's in great shape, even though I don't have that yet. I don't have the abs or the muscle mass or whatever it is my goal is, but this is my identity. I mean, I'm doing the things people with this identity do because I'm surrounded by them. So when I wanted to become an entrepreneur, or at least not an employee, let's say, entrepreneur, freelancer, whatever it's going to be, like I want to claim my own life. I don't want to work for somebody else like this anymore. I joined GoBundance. And it was weird and uncomfortable because all these guys are most of them are entrepreneurs. They're significant. They own businesses. They've done it for their whole lives. They had that, which I didn't. They had that, like, I'm 7 years old, I'm mowing lawns, and I'm realizing, like, oh, if I hire my friends and I'll pay them all this, I can get more. Like, some kids just think like that. Some people just think like that from birth. I didn't have that gene in me. So I'm watching these, like, natural, driven, smart, like, nimble entrepreneurs around me. And what do? Oh, yeah, I'm going to do this event. I have this coach. I'm networking at this thing. I'm leading this. I'm giving back here. And it's like, well, let me just do those things. Yeah. And so for me, it's like when you surround yourself with those people that have the identity that you're claiming, that you want and or are claiming, it's really hard not to align with the principles of that identity and therefore take on that identity if you do, right? Like if I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but then every day called and bitched to my coworkers about the work day that I had, I'm never going to drag myself out of that because, that's where I stand. That's where I sit. You have to be uncomfortable, put yourself in a situation around other people who have the identity that you're claiming, in my opinion, or at least it's the easiest and shortest way to have, otherwise you have to break away from and push through the noise. It's like all my employee friends, they think I'm crazy for what I want to do. Okay, but I've got these people who are showing me the way. I mean, I remember when I said, guys, I'm gonna have to give back like $700,000 in equity when I quit. So it was more than the salary. Like I had a bunch of equity I had to just like give back to the company because I was an equity level employee. And to me, and talking to my employee friends who knew I was going to quit, like, dude, man, like, I mean, think about this and compounding and blah, 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 blah. The GoBundance guys were like, dude, you can make that in 2 years. I'm like, I can. Like, you're already doing this and you're already doing this. You don't see 700,000 in equity in the next 2 years. And by the way, you'll have your freedom. I go, oh yeah, you're right. Right. So being around those people who have the identity, who know and see and have been where you're trying to go, to me, that's everything. And for me, I've become a guy that heavily invests in masterminds. I have a coach, all of that at all times, because I can see that the path from here to there is much shorter when I invest in that proximity.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And it's just, right, you get around that community and do what they do. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's crazy because even if you do talk with high level employees at your current job that are making similar money or top performers, even the stuff you're saying is still crazy to them. You would think they relate to you in some aspect, but whenever you talk about it, and we were talking about this last night, in a community where they're like-minded individuals, looking to grow, have this yearn for, this entrepreneurial lifestyle, building this freedom, and you're sharing this crazy stuff and they're challenging you to do more, right? Like, it's just a total opposite. So yeah, I love that. And I think that goes into the mindset, community. I love it, Jamie, because you're setting me up for a lot of topics here I want to discuss. And
let's roll. Yeah.
We're going to kind of, circle it back here. So with that identity, you talked about GoBundance in the community. With that, could you talk about, so that community, I believe, transitioned you into meeting, your partners for Quantum Capital.
Yep.
Talk about that transition there.
Yeah, I was buying my own stuff in the Midwest. So Michigan, Ohio, even upstate New York, my first two duplexes were in upstate New York. And then like many, it's like, man, way easier to buy 10, 15, 20 units at once. Found a partner. He and I bought this 16 unit together in Michigan, was brought in as like a sponsor on a 22 unit deal in Cleveland, Ohio. And I had kind of had my portfolio, partnered up on some of them, owned some of them out, myself, me and my wife. And that was it. So I had all of that. But it's funny how, you're looking at like, okay, real estate investing, like this is good. You're supposed to underwrite a deal every week. I don't want to do that. Yeah. You're supposed to asset management, get on the property management calls. Like, of course, I own the asset. I got to get on the calls, but man, I couldn't wait to get off those calls. Faster the better. I hate everything about asset management, underwriting. I hate the blocking and tackling of real estate. I love what it does. And I love the interactive part of real estate. The people you meet, the connections you make within the real estate world are amazing. Real estate investing world are amazing. So at a GoBundance event, I meet a guy named Mark who's out of LA. The fun part about Mark is that he's a writer for Family Guy. So for 22, 23 years at the time, he's been a writer, showrunner, like Emmy-nominated writer for Family Guy. Wrote the pilot episode with Seth MacFarlane, right? Like legendary writer. But because way back when he was a young writer, he worked for Letterman, fired, he gets this job with Fox on this show that he didn't know was going to take off, like Family Guy. Any money he got, he was like, I need to buy real estate to secure my future, and fell in love with that as well. So he starts raising capital over time and building up a portfolio and everything. And he has this business, Quantum Capital, with him and one other guy running all the asset management stuff. Now, the key to me to being in proximity to the kinds of people that you're trying to become is not to get from them, but to give to them. So, and it can be tactical, but also I think it should just be an energy you bring. So when I met Mark, interesting, right? Like he's talking about Family Guy. Of course, you have all these questions. I guess so cool, whatever. Why the real estate? Why are you even doing that? You're making 7 figures on Family Guy, right? Like it made no sense to me, but great conversation. But I'm hearing him talk about what he's challenged by. Like, yeah, I do have my job and I have this business and I'm looking to grow it. Meeting other people, like raising capital is always a challenge. So I'm like, who you need to meet is this guy, and this guy. Come with me. Let me introduce you. So I introduced him to a few different people. I think even later I thought of somebody and connect him to him, just other GoBundance guys that he could meet that would help him. And then went about the event, wherever we were. I forget where we were. But after that event, a month or two later, he calls me and he says, hey, I wanted to say thanks for all the connections. He's like, I've never seen a guy with like your level of kind of connector energy. And then he explained his business. He's like, it's me and Nick. We would love like a marketing, investor relations, capital raising kind of guy. Any chance you want to focus solely on that in your real estate career and become a general partner with Quantum? Told you a minute ago, I hate underwriting. I hate asset management. I don't like any of it. But host some webinars, write some newsletters, get on calls with people, have conversations with them about what they want to do, how they want to invest. Like, yeah, let's go. So I could pare down from all of real estate investing to the part that I like the most. I could partner up with a firm that's got the connections, the bank terms, all the things that I wish I could have as a small investor in the Midwest. Yeah. And I could do it in a way that would at the same time support my vision, which was I want to be able to travel 3+ months with my family anywhere in the world. I'm not doing asset management. I don't need to be anywhere. I could do it from anywhere. As long as I have a phone, I'm good. And a Wi-Fi signal maybe. And that's most places in the world. So all of these things were kind of perfect. And I felt I could add value. So I jumped in and we've syndicated a bunch of deals together. I've raised a bunch of capital. It's been an amazing experience. Admittedly, as that grew, my brand grew, my Emerge business grew. At some point, we were talking about this with you, like something had to go. Yeah. And so I kind of backed away from the active role. I'm still a GP on all those deals. Any of the investors I brought in, if they have questions, I'll update them. I'm not gone from Quantum. I'm still on the website. But the active stuff, I told him, like I'm too spread out. I got to focus here. He's like, I completely get that. So, Mark and I called him about he lives in LA. So messaging him about, hey, everything good, with the fires and everything. So, but I backed away from the active day to day on that. But yeah, that netted me some significant equity. It gave me a place to park a lot of capital because I had sold my portfolio and I wanted to invest it somewhere else. So not only as a GP, but an LP in all the Quantum deals that I raised capital for. And again, built an amazing relationship with a guy who also, by the way, invited me to Seth MacFarlane's birthday party, which was pretty cool. So I had a lot of fun at that. But that's the pathway. It's like, if I had to distill it down, it's like, again, get around the people you want to identify that for your future identity, serve those people, take an interest and serve those people. And then just some of the time, and it's not like Mark's the only guy I ever did that with. I've done that with dozens of guys, hundreds of guys. Hey, you got to meet so-and-so, you got to meet so-and-so. But every so often, when you plant all those little seeds, one of those seeds sprouts a tree, and that was a tree that sprouted. So serve as many people as you can, and then don't ask or don't expect anything. And just know that if you're truly doing it, not for the get, but just for the give, man, the get comes. And when you're surrounded by people resourced and connected at levels that you're not at yet, when they come back with something for you, it's at a level that's way beyond your regular life.
Yeah.
That's how I would see it.
Again, love it, man. And it reminds me of this book. It's called Great by Choice by Jim Collins, I believe.
Oh, I like that. Great by Choice. Yeah.
Yeah. And he talks about, this lucky aspect of life. Like, you look at people that are successful, or they're lucky, they came into this money, they did this, they did that, they own this business, right? And it's easy for somebody that's not there to say, oh, hey, they're just lucky. Things just kind of fall into their lap. But he talks about being great by choice, where you put yourself in a position to be around a community, to just keep showing up, not knowing what's going to happen. I mean, you were buying some duplexes, stuff here and there, maybe 10 unit, but had no idea you would own $170 million in real estate as a GP, right? Yeah. But just putting yourself in that position, yeah, there are lucky moments that come up, but you don't get to experience those if you don't put yourself in that position, and surround yourself by like-minded individuals, and a lot of hard work that people don't see behind the scenes as well. So I heard that analogy once, and it was like, and he was referencing the guy with that started Southwest, like he had a lot of success, but there was a lot of work behind the curtains there.
Sure.
And really just sticking to, and then he talks about not just shooting cannonballs, is gets scope in on your target.
There it is, dude. That is not only that. I like not shooting cannonballs, like zero in, but I also like not shooting cannonballs in terms of like small daily steps. Mm-hmm. So most of us, like, it's like, all right, I'm going to go massive action. I'm going to go balls to the wall, burn myself out, and then stop. When really massive action is often just a compilation. So an example, look, we've all done the, I want to do this, but we haven't taken the level of action. We haven't followed through we've all done that. But I remember when I got my first 2 duplexes, financing was a challenge. Like I trying to find a bank in this little town in upstate New York. And I called 14 banks, 14 different banks, and finally got the one that was the one with the terms I wanted. It was a portfolio lender, all of that stuff. But every other bank told you, like, no, it's Fannie, Freddie, this, that, and the other. Like, not this bank. This bank allowed us to do it differently because they weren't selling it on the secondary market. When it comes to like people often ask me about moving to a place like Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Bahamas, like the tropical lifestyle. And their whole thing is like, I just need a job. Like there's thousands, probably millions of remote jobs in the world. And I remember a guy messaged me asking for advice. And I said, well, here's a website. Go ahead and apply, find jobs on there and apply. 4 months later, he messaged me again. I don't know him, but I just kind of like, he's messaged me before I scrolled up. And then I read his new message. His new message was like, man, yeah, hey, I could really use help finding a remote job. And I said, well, did you do the thing 4 months ago I said to do? Like, go to this site and apply. He's like, no, it costs like $20 a month and, whatever. I'm like, then I can't help you anymore. That's the end of that. Like, I'm not going to pour into you. In the meantime, 4 months, if he had paid $20, that's $80 he would have invested. And if he had applied for 2 jobs a week over 12 weeks, 16 weeks, he'd apply for 30 jobs, apply for 100, apply for 150, apply for 200. Like, there's a compounding effect when you're just like, I'm just going to, hey, I'm done with my work day. There was like, where's the list of jobs? All right, attach resume, send. Right? Like, you could do that twice a week and all of a sudden you've applied for 100 jobs in a year or more or whatever it is. Like, that's massive action. It's not like this grit up, go balls to the wall, exhaust yourself. It's simply saying, I know what I want and I'm going to, until I get it, continue to do the thing I need to do on a weekly, monthly, daily basis, whatever it is, to get there. And at the end, it compiles to massive action. I applied for 200 jobs. Whoa, you're picturing this guy was just bang, bang, bang. He's on the phone. He's doing interviews. Oh my God. Maybe. Or he might have spent a year applying to 2 jobs a week. Spent 20 minutes a week, occasionally an interview, 7 of them. Let's say he spent 30 hours over the course of a year taking massive action. Like, I think there's something to that as well. Like you said about lucky. Luck is a byproduct of preparation meeting opportunity, no doubt about it. But that preparation could be as simple as just methodical daily steps, weekly steps you take to get to where you want to get to.
Yeah. It's so overwhelming when you look at it as a whole, but you just break it down to your point. I mean, it's very achievable. It's just not a lot of people take the time to do it or spend the $20 a month or whatever it is to get, to where they want to go. They just want it to happen. They just want it to fall.
Crazy too, because it could be just one step. I remember a coach saying to me, like, when I was thinking about moving down here and we had all these thoughts, oh my God, okay, flight, school, taxes, what about health insurance, like all these swirling around about moving to another country. And this coach I had at the time said something to the effect of like, all right, what can you do? What's the first thing you can do like in the next 2 hours? I'm like, I could book a flight. He's like, then book the flight. So I did. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, all these like swirling things in this unknown cloud above me just started to line up. So it was like, oh, okay, I booked the flight. Well, when I land, I'll need a car. How do I get a car? Oh, I have a friend who can lease us a car for a year. We're going to do a year here. Like, okay, car, school, Google. Well, there's 3, 4 I see here, like set up appointments and okay, got to have a place to live. Or maybe the live was first, right? Okay, well, we'll live here for 2 months. How much is an Airbnb? Like $5,000 a month? Yeah, we could do that. Let's do that for 2 months. We'll do an Airbnb that takes care of all our expense, $5,000 all day. And we'll find a place you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
That first step is the one that's the hardest to take. And then it often creates clarity on the next and the next and the next. And it makes that cloud of the unknown start to part a little bit as you're going down that journey. So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, and speaking of that compounding effect, I mean, just taking it back to real estate for a second. I mean, I just did a presentation a few days ago where we talked about, how do you become a millionaire just by investing $50,000 a year, right? $50,000 a year at 15% average annual return. In 10 years, as you keep investing, right, your net worth grows. You keep getting, the 15% is based on 500, 200 grand, 500 grand, 800 grand. And now next thing you know, you're getting 15% on $1 million as you have in just 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you just break it down into simple steps, which Jamie, you just, explained, great to the, got a great way of communicating that. It's very attainable, right? It's just, it's just making that next decision. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not sexy. It's not fun. Like, oh, here's the extra 100 grand.
No.
Right. It's like putting even that. It's like putting away a certain amount per week, or I got this percentage of my bonus or whatever, right? Like in order to get to the point where you're investing 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 each year.
Well, let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask you this, and we're going to transition to the end of the last segment of the pod.
We're good. Yeah.
All right, cool. And so if you had, say, $100,000 right now to invest, what would you invest in? I mean, all right, would you do multifamily? Would you stick with real estate? Would you do small business acquisitions? Yeah. What would you do right now?
Here's what's coming to mind for me, and maybe this is the season I'm in right now. 20,000 would go toward my personal development in some way, shape, or form. Whether that's an event or a series of events, a community, a mastermind, coaching. 20 grand goes into the thing that generates the most capital, which is me. So 20 grand I would allocate to me. 30 grand I would allocate to memories and experiences with my family. That would be a trip around the world, something like that. And again, I believe that's an investment. I truly do. It creates possibility. It creates, so much.
Yeah.
The other 50,000, if I were to put it into something hard right now, and this might just be where it's one of two things. I'm either investing it in a multifamily asset, 5 to 10 units in a low value, like an Indiana, a Michigan, a Midwest sort of thing. Like I want the lowest cost per door, BC class with upside, potential to kind of drive equity. So like a value add property just to own and operate and grow that. And again, multifamily to me is the best. It's still the best. You got to live somewhere. There's so much limited supply right now. The pace of construction is behind the demand. I mean, it's just multifamily is amazing. Yeah. But the other side, and again, this comes down to lifestyle design and this journey I'm on. If you were to ask me now to project the next few years, simplicity is more important to me. So 50,000 in the stock market in an index fund returning 8% per year, which is like $4,000. That's not sexy, but it's $4,000 a year, right? 8 times, yeah. Like that also interests me because what I have learned is you can't beat the market long term. Like no matter what you do, no matter what you invest in, unless you're going all in, and I'm not ready to go all in on real estate. I don't want to buy 200 units. If you do that, absolutely, if that's your objective. But for me, with simplicity, again, vision and knowing where you want to go, like the path I'm going down, you saw my vision. It had words like creator, visionary, whatever, I forget what it said, and storyteller, right? Those are things that I love doing. I love doing podcasts like this. I love doing my like building my brand and my YouTube channel and allowing my brand to create equity for me. So I like that. So simplicity for me makes me think I would pack that into the stock market to the point where now, like if I think about liquidating everything as these deals with Quantum turn and I'm hopefully repaid with the returns that we thought we could hit. I've got some investments in like a coffee company, some other stuff like these all liquidate and bring me, I don't know, $3-4 million. I mean, what's so bad about taking that, dumping it into a Vanguard S&P 500 index fund that averages 10% a year, but let's just call it 8. And if it's 4 million, 8% of $4 million is what, $320,000 per year, no thinking, no maintenance, no overhead, no calls, no management calls, nothing. But again, my life is moving toward that simplicity, all of that. Some other people love the game of real estate, man. It's sacrilege to put $1 in anything other than real estate. And God bless them. If that was me, I would go with the multifamily route.
Well, and here's a great point that you just made that I heard is you don't have to just do one thing and stick to it,
Yeah,
right? Like you
100%.
go in with the multifamily, next thing you know, you create some good income once these deals start to go full cycle. Take that big payout, put 80% of it in the stock market, maybe use another 20% of it back into real estate, whatever, right? And obviously, have your. I love how you talked about the trips and stuff. Those are memories. You'll never forget those. Your kids will never forget those, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a big thing, even just not even taking trips, was like, I need to make sure we're taking the daily hikes and stuff. We ran into somebody on the hiking trail. They're like, this is so great you're taking your kids hiking. I always remembered my mom and dad doing that when I was a kid, 50-year-old man, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I love having those memories, investing in yourself. But yeah, just diversifying. I mean, that's what we teach here. You put your money in different buckets, spread it across that portfolio. And again, look at the things long term. Real estate, long term, whether up and down the market cycles, has
Always.
always went up, always. So and the stock market too, right? You go
Yeah.
ups and downs. It's just
Real estate is better,
different.
in my
Yeah.
opinion, than the stock market because you can tap it, you can control it. Like
Yeah.
if you love the game, and some people do, then real estate to me is the best. I mean, there's nothing. The stock market lacks tax advantages. The stock market lacks things like cost segregation. The stock market lacks debt pay down. Like none of that exists in the stock market. The only place where you get all of it, debt pay down, appreciation, somebody else paying for you, so cash flow, and then on top of that, the tax advantage. There's no business can do that. Only real estate can. Business can free you faster than real estate from a job, no doubt. Business is the pathway out of a job. Business is the way to make income in the near term, but real estate long term,
Yeah.
my God, I don't know of a better vehicle. I don't think there is. I don't think there ever will be a better vehicle than real estate. But again, I think it's important for people to tie their investment thesis to their vision. Like, do I want to be in this place of all in storyteller, creator, being available for my family in that way, traveling and all of that, and then have, a property manager in Illinois or Idaho or wherever say, hey, we got a problem, like the sewer pipe burst and like, oh, all right, well, where do we pull that money from? Do we have enough in the, we're a little short. All right, let me go to the bank. Like that, that doesn't quite fit where I'm going at this point. But the other part too is like my brand equity here in the Dominican Republic also gets me access to real estate, a portion of it, if not complete ownership of real estate in exchange for that brand equity. So I'm getting my real estate in a different way, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, again, there's just so many different avenues too. And for the people that don't want to deal with the landlord issues, like that's where the being an LP comes in, right? You just park your money and you get the tax benefits. And I think that is one of the huge differences between the stock market.
Oh,
And it's like, how do you make the money, but how do you keep it too and not give 30% or 20% away to the government, right?
everybody asks about GoBundance. Like, is it a bunch of real estate guys? Like, no, it's a bunch of guys doing a lot of things, but all of them know the same thing. Like the best place to park the money that they make doing whatever they do, owning a roofing company or whatever, is in real estate. So no doubt.
Yeah. Well, again, Jamie, we could go on for feel like hours. I mean, I love talking about this stuff. I know you do as well.
Fun, man. Yeah, I appreciate it.
It is. Yeah, but I definitely want to be respectful of your time here too. And so we're going to transition to the last. I'm going to ask you 4 questions. And one is if you could recommend a book on real estate for investors, or it doesn't even have to be a real estate book, just a book to just help people get started out that are just starting this journey, or even maybe a seasoned investor. And then what's another book that's really had an impact on you on cultivating a positive mindset?
Sure. So on the real estate side, I'll split it between, Rich Dad is the easy one, or Richest Man in Babylon. Those are really great. Like, oh, I get the concept books, but the best tactical book I've ever read on investing in real estate, from everything from, building a brand to get, recognized by brokers or whatever, is the Best Ever book by Joe Fairless. It's thick, it's big, but it's just like step after step after step on investing in real estate. So that to me is the best tactical book. Best Ever Real Estate Investing book, I think it's called, or the best real estate investing book ever, whatever. Joe Fairless. So many books out there that I would say have helped cultivate a positive mindset. I think the biggest one that jumps to mind, and maybe it's just the most recent, I don't know, but is 10X is easier than 2X with Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. I mean, the simplicity the simplicity of going big without the need for you to like steal all the time in the world from your family or from yourself or not sleep and grind, all of that. Like it truly redefined what we knew 10X to be, this sort of like grind it out, go to the wall, never stop action, to actually when you set the biggest goal possible for yourself, you get way more clarity on where to spend your time most effectively. Like that book to me was mind blowing. And to this day, I mean, we designed part of Emerge around it. You know, it's an incredible book. So that's the book I would say has cultivated the positive mindset.
Yeah, great. I should go back and reread that book. You know, it's funny you keep saying simplicity, and that, you know, when we doing those one sheets, right? I kind of got a jump on it from last year, then, you know, started looking at some stuff, and it says one word, right? And my word was simplicity. Like you know, it's crazy. The word simplicity, I feel like I've overcomplicated it. We're 2 weeks in, you know, to the month, Jamie. But
it doesn't mean every day has to be this simple. Like I woke up, I had coffee, I read a book, I stretched, a bird fell on my finger or landed on my finger. Like that's not simple. You're creating simplicity for yourself by having to go like maybe complex or more action in the short term. So like simplicity is the outcome, not the thing you're doing every day. So if you've got a business that you can then scale and operate without you having to be the day-to-day, and that happens in the next 9 months, year and a half, 2 years, that is creating simplicity. So I mean, as long as it feels like this move gets you to where you want to be with simplicity, it's the right thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, let me ask you this. So how do you structure your day to maintain a healthy work-life balance, right? And, you know, kind of structuring around having guardrails around the time with your family, especially your kids, right? Because, you know, they're in a younger age, we're never going to get this time back. And they're not going to remember how much dad was working. They're going to remember how much dad was spending with them, taking these trips around the world, right? Things like that. Like, how do you guard that time? And then what's a morning routine you can share with us?
Sure. So one thing I've refused to do since I quit my job is set an alarm. So I don't wake up to an alarm clock. I wake up when I wake up. Sometimes it's 6:30, sometimes it's 7:30, but I wake up when I wake up. I take those kids to school every morning. So get them ready. That sounds so like, oh, how nice. But some mornings that's really stressful. It's really annoying. Like I want to throw them out of the car on the way, but we have our time. And sometimes like we went to school the other day, my older son was annoyed at something on the drive there. When we got there, I played like we were storming the school. You have to go upstairs. So like I jumped out and hid behind a pole and said, all right, you two go. Right. And the smiles, the laugh was fun. So we recovered a stressful morning with something fun that day. Cool. But always take them to school. And then 8 to 9, 9:30, my wife and I go to the gym together. So we spend that time together at the gym. We have trainers to help us like just kind of work through without having to think. I like to make as few decisions in a day as possible. So, you know, somebody else telling me, go do that, go do this. Not only do I do more things, I get pushed more, but I don't have to think about what to do. So I show up, they tell me what we're working, they tell me what to work, and that's the end of that. But my wife and I have that time. I usually come home, do some things. 10 o'clock is when I start my day. So I start my day at 10 a.m. local time. And from about 10 to 4-ish is when I really go after it. Some days later, like today, we have the Wednesday Emerge call. So, I'll do that at what's 5 my time, 4 Eastern. And then Tuesday nights, of course, I have the onboarding. So there's a little bit of exception there. But 10 to 4 is when I try to go after it, get on podcasts, write my newsletter, record content, dive into some of the stuff with Emerge, whatever it might be, 10 to 4. 4 o'clock, I try to be re-available for the kids. That's either hanging out with them, play a video game. I try to go to their soccer games or soccer practices whenever I can. They're Monday, Wednesday, Friday. At least be around, be present. And admittedly, there's days I can't. And there's also days that I go and I'm physically there, but I'm on a call. Like it's never perfect. Yeah. And then bedtime's a tight. So with my pod, I communicated this, like I want to do 6 bedtimes a week, like on average, right? And Tuesday night's tough for me to do because I have the Tuesday night thing, but the rest of the week, I mean, unless there's something crazy happening or I'm traveling, I do bedtime with my kids every night with my wife. So the two of us, there's 2 kids. They have a bunk bed. I lay with one, she lays with the other, and we're with them till they fall asleep every night. And that's the best way I've learned how to balance it all. And then again, in there though, there's times when I need to be more intense and I can't do quite as much with the kids. There's times when I don't need to be as intense. Like around the holidays, I dialed it back a little bit and I was even more present and did more things with the kids. But that's generally how I strike that balance. I feel like I missed a part of your question, though.
No, I think you covered it. So I asked the second part of the morning routine, but yeah, I mean, maintaining a healthy work-life balance. But yeah, morning routine as you wake up when your alarm goes.
I do.
Without alarm.
I do a brief meditation each morning. I have a set of IMs. I say that in the morning and I say that at night. There's 9 of them. I'm an amazing father, I'm a devoted husband, I'm a high achiever, I'm smart, I'm driven, I'm inspiring, I'm handsome, I'm confident, I'm a millionaire. Those are my 9 IMs that I say each morning and each night just to kind of like program it. I'll journal most of the time, even if it's with the app on my phone. I have a morning pages app, just maybe some gratitude. It might be quick, but just something. I'll journal each morning as well after I wake up and do my brief meditation.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That whole thing, honestly, is like 5 minutes, maybe 10. It's like 2-3 minutes of just kind of like dial it, like don't just like jump on the phone, journal something out real quick. Sometimes it's longer, and then do the IMs and I'm gone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Because I mean, you can overcomplicate it so much with these morning routines. Oh, do this, sit here for an hour, go cold plunge.
I did that for a while, and it can be grounding, but it did at a certain point, and when it does, I think you have to pivot. It became like a schedule thing. Like I have to do this, otherwise I can't. It's like that's when it went too far. Before it was like getting me some sense of clarity and direction, and it worked. But then when it became burdensome, I had to modify it.
Yeah, no, I because it overwhelms you too, and it's just it's not worth doing something. You have to take a step back, simplify it, simplicity, right? Yeah. So, last question: if you could be remembered for one thing, what would that be?
I always tell my wife this. On my headstone, it'll say, "Here lies Sylvia's husband." That's all I want to be. I want to be a great husband to my wife. I want to be a great dad to my kids. That's honestly, that guides a lot of this stuff too. Like when I'm stressed out and angry that I can't get something done today, like, will it matter in 2028? Really? That the kids want my time. It's not ideal for me. I've got so much to do, but is that to do really going to change my life in 2028? Or God forbid I'm diagnosed or die or whatever in the next 7 years. Am I going to remember that moment? Like, man, if only I got that, that newsletter done sooner or whatever, So Here lies Sylvia's husband. That's on my headstone.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, yeah, all this other stuff really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things when you're looking at what impact did I make on my family and the people that I love the most. So
100%.
Jamie, if you could tell listeners where they can find you. You got this great community emerge. Where can they go more to connect with you? Podcast, all that.
Yeah. So I would say check out GoBundanceEmerge.com, GoBundanceEmerge.com. You can apply there and get on the call with one of our ambassadors. Me personally, follow me at the Jamie Gruber on Instagram. And if you want to check out Tribe of Millionaires, fun podcast.
Awesome. Well, I enjoyed our conversation, as I knew I would. I mean, great to talk to. I mean, super inspirational. And, you're doing it, man. You're doing it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. And until next time. Thank you for listening to the Optimal Wealth Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, be sure to optimize your results and take massive action on what you have learned here today. For more, visit optimalequitygroup.com.